The gathering storm. On the distant planet of Vorthen, dark clouds loomed over the once vibrant cities, casting shadows that whispered of despair. Vorthen was home to the Zorethians, a proud and noble race known for their deep connection to nature and their advanced technology. But now, their beautiful planet was under siege. An army of ruthless aliens, the Vexari, had invaded, intent on conquering Vorthen and stripping it of its resources. The Zorethians had fought bravely, but their forces were dwindling. In the Great Hall of Eldara, the central city, the alien leader, Commander Thaler, stood at the front of a gathering of resistance fighters. Their faces were drawn with exhaustion, and fear lingered in their eyes. Thaler felt the weight of his people's hopes resting heavily on his shoulders. "Friends," he began, his voice steady but filled with urgency, "we are at the brink of defeat. The Vexari grow stronger every day, and our people suffer. We must find a way to turn the tide." A murmur of agreement rippled through the hall. The Zorethians were skilled warriors, but the Vexari were relentless. They had advanced weapons and technology that made them nearly unstoppable. Thaler looked around the room, seeing the weariness etched on the faces of his comrades. He knew they needed help, but where could they turn? Thaler's mind raced with possibilities. Then he remembered the ancient legends of Earth, a planet known for its fierce warriors and incredible ingenuity. Stories of humans had traveled through the stars, tales of bravery and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Could it be possible that humans could help them in their time of need? Gathering his thoughts, Thaler addressed the room once more. "I propose a daring plan. We must reach out to Earth and ask for their aid. We have nothing to lose. If we do not try, we will surely perish." The room fell silent as the resistance fighters exchanged glances. It was a bold idea, but fear mingled with hope. Would the humans even respond? And if they did, could they truly help? One brave warrior named Callan stood up, her eyes shining with determination. "Commander Fiddler, I believe we should take that chance. The legends of humans are filled with stories of their courage. We owe it to our people to try," she said, her voice strong and unwavering. With a nod of agreement, Thaler began to organize a team to send a message to Earth. They worked tirelessly, using their remaining technology to construct a communication device powerful enough to reach the distant planet. As the device hummed to life, a flicker of hope ignited within Thaler's heart. Days turned into nights as the Zorethians waited anxiously for a response. Thaler often found himself gazing out over the desolate landscape, the once lush fields now scorched and barren. He thought of his ancestors, who had fought to protect their home, and he knew he could not let their legacy fade away. Finally, as dawn broke on the 6th day, the communication device crackled to life. Thaler rushed to the console, his heart pounding with anticipation. The screen flickered, and a voice emerged, clear and resolute. "This is Captain Emma Reynolds of the United Earth Forces. We have received your message. Tell us how we can assist." Thaler's heart soared. Humans had answered. He quickly explained their dire situation, the relentless assault by the Vexari, and the urgent need for assistance. Captain Reynolds listened intently, her expression serious yet filled with understanding. "We will send a team to your planet," she replied. "Humanity has faced great challenges, and we understand the cost of war. We will do our best to help you fight back against the Vexari." Relief washed over Thaler as he transmitted his gratitude. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, the fire of hope kindling within him and his people. For the first time in weeks, they had a glimmer of light piercing through the darkness. As preparations began for the humans' arrival, the Zorethians fortified their defenses, gathering weapons and training their remaining fighters. The sense of camaraderie among the resistance grew stronger. They were not alone in this fight. They had allies coming to their aid. Commander Thaler gathered the fighters once more, sharing stories of human bravery and resilience, urging them to hold on to hope. He spoke of unity, of fighting not just for their survival, but for a future where they could thrive once again. The fighters, once weary and defeated, began to feel the spark of determination reignite within them. As they prepared for the humans' arrival, a new bond began to form, one that transcended their differences and united them in a common cause. Together, they would face the Vexari, and together, they would fight for their freedom. "It is our home," Kellen replied, stepping closer, "and we will do whatever it takes to defend it. We've been pushed to the edge, but with your help, we can reclaim what is ours." Feller led the humans to the old fortress, where they would plan their strategy against the Vexari. As they walked through the ancient stone hallways, the Zorathians shared their knowledge of the enemy, details about their weapons, battle tactics, and weaknesses. In the war room, the humans began to assess the situation. They studied the maps, listening carefully as Thaler and Callan explained the recent battles and the areas under threat. "I suggest a multi-pronged approach," Lieutenant Thompson proposed, his finger tracing the Vexari positions on the map. "We can use hit-and-run tactics to disrupt their supply lines, while also mounting a direct assault on their base. It's risky, but it could work if we coordinate our efforts." Feller nodded, impressed by the humans' strategic thinking. "Yes, we will need to be swift and precise. Together, we can outsmart the Vexari and reclaim our territory." As the planning session continued into the night, the atmosphere buzzed with energy and hope. Each soldier, both human and Zorathian, felt the thrill of purpose coursing through them. They were no longer just individuals from different worlds. They were allies bound by a common goal. The storm that had threatened to destroy Vorthen was beginning to shift. With humanity's arrival, hope blossomed in the hearts of the Zorathians, and together they would face the challenges ahead. United, they would fight for their home, their freedom, and their future. The first strike. With the dawn of a new day on Vorthen, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Commander Thaler, Captain Reynolds, and their assembled forces gathered in the war room, ready to finalize their strategy for the upcoming battle against the Vexari. As sunlight streamed through the ancient fortress windows, illuminating the room, hope filled the air. Today would mark the first real test of their alliance. "Listen closely," Thaler began, his voice steady and commanding. "The Vexari are expecting us to remain on the defensive. They believe we are weakened and demoralized. We will surprise them with a coordinated attack." Captain Reynolds stepped forward, her expression serious. "Our goal is to hit them hard and fast. We'll use the element of surprise to disrupt their operations. I suggest we split our forces into 3 groups. Group 1 will create a diversion at the eastern front, drawing attention away from our main strike force in the south. Group 2 will support Group 1 and flank the Vexari," Lieutenant Thompson added. "Meanwhile, Group 3 will be our main assault team, led by Commander Thaler and myself. We'll push directly into their base and take out their command center." The room hummed with agreement as the plan took shape. The Zorathians, armed with their advanced technology and natural agility, would blend seamlessly with the humans' disciplined tactics and firepower. As they prepared to set out, Fowler could sense the adrenaline coursing through his soldiers. This was not just a battle for survival, it was a fight for their future. Before the teams deployed, Callan approached Thaler, her eyes filled with determination. "We need to ensure that our fighters understand the stakes. They must know that this is not just about defeating the Vexari. It's about reclaiming our home and our way of life." Feller nodded, appreciating her passion. "You're right. Let's gather everyone for a final briefing. They need to feel our unity and the strength of our cause." As the resistance fighters and human soldiers assembled outside the fortress, Thaler spoke passionately. "Today, we stand as one. We are not just Zorathians and humans. We are allies fighting for freedom. The Vexari may outnumber us, but we have something they do not: heart and determination. Together, we will show them that we will not back down." A chorus of cheers erupted as warriors raised their weapons, the sound echoing off the ancient stones. The Zorathians and humans exchanged confident glances, the bond of friendship and trust deepening with each moment. The 2 teams set off toward the Vexari stronghold, moving swiftly through the lush forests that once thrived before the invasion. Feller led the main assault team, his senses heightened as they approached the enemy's territory. He could feel the weight of their mission pressing down on him, but he also felt a fierce determination to protect his people. Feller turned to his team, gathering everyone for a brief meeting. "Listen up, everyone. We have taken the first step in our fight for freedom, but the Vexari will not give up easily. We need to prepare for their inevitable return. Our next goal is to establish a secure perimeter around our stronghold and communicate with other resistance factions across Forthen." As they dispersed to begin their tasks, a sense of camaraderie blossomed among the Zorethians and humans. They worked side by side, sharing stories of past struggles and victories, building connections that went beyond mere alliance. Meanwhile, Kellen, the skilled Zorethian engineer, was busy gathering her team to work on fortifying their base. "We need to enhance our defenses if we're going to withstand a counterattack," she said, rallying the Zorethians and humans alike. "Let's work together to create a system of barriers and traps that will give us an advantage." "Great idea," Lieutenant Thompson replied, his enthusiasm evident. "I can help coordinate with our engineers to improve our weapon systems as well. We can't rely solely on our current technology." As the days turned into a week, the sound of construction filled the air. Makeshift barriers rose from the ground, reinforced by both Zorethian technology and human ingenuity. The soldiers trained rigorously, exchanging tactics and strategies to maximize their effectiveness. During this time, Feller and Reynolds frequently met to discuss their progress. "We've received word from several resistance factions across Forthen," Reynolds informed him one evening as they reviewed maps of their territory. "They're inspired by our victory and willing to join forces, but they need our support to help push back the Vexari in their regions as well." Feller leaned over the map, tracing his finger along the routes they could take. "Then we need to prepare a convoy and assist them. We must unite our forces, share our resources, and strengthen our ties. If we spread hope, we can turn the tide of this war." Just then, a scout burst into the tent, breathless and wide-eyed. "Commander, Captain, we've spotted Vexari scouts approaching from the north." The news sent a chill through the room. The Vexari were indeed regrouping, and their response would not be long in coming. Feller quickly gathered his team, formulating a plan. "We'll split our forces into two. One will engage the Vexari scouts to slow their advance, while the other prepares for the main attack." Reynolds stepped forward, her face set with determination. "I'll lead the main force. We need to protect our base at all costs." Feller nodded, trusting her judgment. "And I'll take the scout team. We must cut off their communication and prevent them from reporting back. We cannot allow them to gather their strength." As they prepared to move out, the tension was palpable. Each warrior felt the weight of their mission, knowing that this encounter could shift the course of the battle. They armed themselves and gathered their courage, ready to confront the enemy. Under the cover of darkness, Feller's team stealthily advanced toward the Vexari scouts. Using the terrain to their advantage, they moved silently, their hearts pounding in rhythm with the crunch of leaves beneath their feet. The distant glow of campfires indicated where the Vexari were stationed, unaware of the storm approaching. "Remember, our goal is to disrupt their communication and force them into chaos," Feller reminded his team, his voice barely a whisper. "Stay sharp and stick to the plan." As they drew closer, the outlines of the Vexari scouts came into view. They were gathered around a fire, their alien forms illuminated by the flickering flames. Feller signaled for his team to spread out and prepare for the strike. "On my mark," he said, steadying his breath. 3, 2, 1, now." They charged into the camp, surprising the Vexari and throwing them into disarray. Weapons blazed, and the air filled with the sounds of battle. Feller fought with fierce determination, his blade slicing through the confusion as his team rallied around him. In the midst of the chaos, Feller spotted a Vexari commander trying to rally his troops. "We can't let him escape," he shouted to his team, urgency in his voice. Together, they pressed forward, forcing the Vexari back. The clash of steel and the sounds of combat echoed through the forest as they fought relentlessly. Feller felt the adrenaline surge as they cornered the Vexari commander, cutting off his escape routes. In a final confrontation, Thaler engaged the commander, their weapons clashing with sparks flying. The Vexari warrior fought valiantly, but Thaler's determination and training gave him the upper hand. With a swift maneuver, he disarmed the enemy and struck a decisive blow, ending the Vexari commander's reign. As the remaining Vexari soldiers flooded into the darkness, Thaler stood panting, surveying the scene. His team had succeeded in disrupting their scouts and sending a clear message. They were not to be underestimated. With dawn approaching, Thaler and his team made their way back to their stronghold, ready to report their success. As they entered the base, they were met with cheers from their fellow soldiers. The bond between the Zorathians and humans had grown stronger with each battle, each victory reinforcing their unity. As Thaler stood before his allies, he felt a swell of pride. Today, we have shown the Vexari that we will not back down. Together, we will fight for our homes and our future. We are stronger than ever, and we will not rest until we have reclaimed what is rightfully ours. The warriors erupted in applause, their spirits soaring with renewed hope. They were not just fighting for survival, they were forging a legacy of resilience and unity that would echo through the ages. The resurgence of humanity and the Zorathians was just beginning, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The turning tide. As the sun rose on a new day, its warm rays bathed the stronghold in golden light. The mood was electric, filled with the energy of triumph and determination. The Zorathians and humans, now bound by shared experiences and victories, began strategizing their next moves. Commander Thaler and Captain Reynolds gathered their best minds, eager to build on their recent successes. "We need to take the fight to the Vexari," Reynolds stated firmly, laying out a map of the surrounding areas. "If we strike at their supply lines and communication centers, we can weaken their hold on this region." Thaler nodded, pointing at the map. "We've gathered intel on their movements. We can coordinate a series of raids that target their supply routes. Each strike must be swift and decisive. We can't give them a chance to regroup." Lieutenant Thompson chimed in, his excitement palpable. "We've also received word from several resistance factions. They're willing to join us in these strikes. The more we can coordinate, the greater our chances for success." "Let's not waste this momentum," Thaler replied, his eyes gleaming with determination. "We will send out scouts to meet with our allies and prepare them for coordinated attacks. This will not just be our victory. It will be a united front against the Vexari." As plans took shape, teams were assembled and sent out to connect with the various resistance groups. Days passed in a flurry of activity, training, and preparations. Warriors of all backgrounds worked side by side, united in a common cause. The spirit of camaraderie transformed the stronghold into a bustling hive of activity. Meanwhile, in a distant Vexari command center, the mood was far less optimistic. The news of the Zorathian and human victories sent ripples of panic through the ranks. The Vexari warlord, a towering figure known as Zethar, was not pleased. "They dare defy us." Zethar roared, his voice echoing in the chamber filled with lesser commanders. "We must crush this rebellion before it grows. They believe they can unite against us, but they will learn the folly of their hope." A Vexari scout stepped forward, trembling. "Warlord, the resistance is gaining strength. They are consolidating their forces and preparing for coordinated strikes against our supply lines." Zethar's eyes narrowed, anger boiling beneath his skin. "Then we must deploy more troops. We will show them the true might of the Vexari Empire. Send out scouts to locate their main base. We will hit them before they have a chance to strike." Back at the stronghold, Thaler and Reynolds reviewed their battle plans, unaware of the impending storm. The resistance factions were eager to join the fight, and a series of coordinated raids began to take shape. Each faction would strike at different locations along the Vexeri supply lines, creating chaos and confusion. Tonight, we will send a team to take out one of their key supply depots, Reynolds explained, her voice filled with excitement. If we can disrupt their resources, it will weaken their forces considerably. Felor looked around the room, filled with determined faces. We must move swiftly and silently. Each team will have its own objectives, and communication is vital. If anything goes wrong, we must be ready to adapt. As night fell, the warriors donned their gear, preparing for the mission ahead. The air was thick with anticipation, and the darkness provided the perfect cover. Teams split into their designated groups, each heading toward their targets with stealth and precision. Felor led a small unit toward the Vexeri supply depot nestled in a valley. The night was eerily quiet as they approached, their hearts pounding with excitement and tension. With hand signals, they coordinated their approach, keeping their movements fluid and silent. As they reached the perimeter of the depot, they could see the Vexeri soldiers patrolling the area, unaware of the storm brewing around them. Felor whispered to his team, "We'll split into two groups. One will create a distraction, while the other goes for the supplies. We need to be in and out quickly." With a nod, the team moved into position. The distraction team lit a small fire at a distance, drawing the attention of the Vexeri guards. As the guards moved away, Felor and his team crept into the depot, quickly locating crates filled with weapons and supplies. "Grab what you can," Felor urged, urgency in his voice. They worked quickly, loading their packs with the much-needed resources, but just as they were about to leave, a loud alarm blared through the night. "Quick, we have to move," Reynolds shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. They darted back toward the exit, but Vexeri guards were already rushing toward them. Felor's heart raced as he shouted commands, coordinating their escape. "Cover me. I'll hold them off." He faced the approaching guards, his weapon drawn, ready to defend his team. The clash was fierce, and the sounds of battle echoed through the valley. Felor fought with all his might, blocking and countering the Vexeri attacks, but he could feel the weight of the odds against him. Reynolds and the others made it to safety, but Felor stayed behind to ensure their escape. "Go. I'll catch up," he yelled, refusing to leave his team behind. As they disappeared into the darkness, Felor fought valiantly, taking down several Vexeri guards. But he was soon overwhelmed. Just as it seemed he would be captured, a blast of energy shot through the air, striking a nearby Vexeri soldier. To his surprise, Callan appeared, having followed their trail to provide backup. "Felor, over here," she shouted, covering him with her weapon. Felor took the chance and sprinted toward her, dodging enemy fire as he did. "Let's move," Felor urged, and together they retreated into the night, fighting their way back toward the stronghold. As they regrouped with the rest of the team, they carried with them not only supplies but also valuable intelligence about the Vexeri operations. Their successful raid would be a turning point in the struggle, and with the resources they acquired, they would bolster their forces for the battles to come. Back at the stronghold, the mood was triumphant. "We did it," Reynolds exclaimed as they shared the news with their allies. "We've disrupted their supply lines, and we have the materials to strengthen our defenses." Felor, breathing heavily but filled with pride, raised his weapon high. "This is just the beginning. Together, we are reclaiming our world, and we will not rest until the Vexeri know the strength of our unity. We will show them that when hope is ignited, it can burn brighter than any darkness." The warriors erupted in cheers, their spirits soaring with renewed hope and determination. They were no longer just a band of survivors. They were a united force, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The tide was turning, and with each victory, they grew stronger in their fight for freedom. The call to arms. The stronghold buzzed with anticipation as news of their successful raid spread. The warriors, once scattered and fearful, had transformed into a united front. Plans were made, strategies discussed, and an unwavering spirit of determination surged through every soldier. They were ready to take the fight to the Vexari, no longer waiting for the enemy to strike first. Commander Thaler stood at the front of the gathering, his presence commanding respect. Today marks a turning point in our struggle. We've proven that we can disrupt the Vexari's grip on this land, he began, his voice resonating with conviction. But we must be prepared for their retaliation. They will not take our victories lightly. Captain Reynolds stepped forward, her eyes shining with resolve. We must rally our allies and spread the word of our victories. Every resistance faction needs to know that we are fighting for their freedom. Together, we can form an unstoppable coalition. The warriors cheered, fueled by the fiery passion ignited within them. Thaler continued, I will send envoys to the nearby settlements, urging them to join our cause. We need every willing hand if we are to take the fight to the Vexari's stronghold. As the day wore on, teams were formed, each tasked with specific missions. Some would head to neighboring settlements to gather support, while others would prepare for the next series of attacks on the Vexari supply routes. The atmosphere was electric, and the sense of purpose invigorated every soldier. Thaler decided to lead the team that would go to the nearby town of Eldrin. It was known for its skilled fighters and resources, and he believed they could make a significant impact in the coming battles. He gathered his most trusted allies, including Reynolds and Callan, to join him on the mission. Let's move swiftly, Thaler instructed as they prepared to depart. We need to convey the urgency of our fight and the strength of our alliance. If Eldrin sees what we've accomplished, they will want to join us. As they journeyed toward Eldrin, they encountered various resistance groups along the way. Thaler made sure to engage with each faction, sharing the news of their victories and inspiring hope in those who had lost it. The message was clear. Together, they could reclaim their world from the Vexari. When they finally reached Eldrin, the town was bustling with activity. The residents eyed the newcomers with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Thaler and his team approached the town square, where a gathering of townsfolk had assembled, eager to hear what these warriors had to say. People of Eldrin, Thaler called out, his voice steady and commanding. We come not as conquerors, but as allies. Together, we have struck a blow against the Vexari and proven that their tyranny can be challenged. Reynolds stepped forward, her passion igniting the crowd. Our victories have shown us that hope is not lost. If we stand together, we can build a force strong enough to drive the Vexari from our lands. Join us in this fight for freedom. The townsfolk exchanged glances, uncertain but intrigued. Callan spoke up, sharing stories of the battles they had fought and the alliances they had forged. We are not alone in this struggle. We fight for our families, our homes, and our future. With your strength added to ours, we can achieve victory. After much discussion, an elder stepped forward, his voice weary yet filled with determination. We have suffered under the Vexari for too long. If you promise to stand with us, then we will join your cause. Together, we shall reclaim our freedom. Cheers erupted from the crowd as the people of Eldrin rallied behind Thaler and his team. This newfound alliance was a crucial step forward in their fight, and the strength of their unity filled the air with hope. As the sun set over Eldrin, illuminating the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple, Thaler gathered his allies for a strategy meeting. Now that we have Eldrin on our side, we must prepare for the next phase of our campaign. We will coordinate a series of attacks against the Vexari strongholds, targeting their leadership and infrastructure. Reynolds nodded in agreement. With the combined forces of Eldrin and the resistance factions, we can strike at the heart of their operations. It's time to show the Vexari the true power of united forces. The team began plotting their course of action, utilizing maps and intel gathered over the past weeks. The atmosphere was charged with excitement as they crafted a plan that would leverage their newfound strength. Meanwhile, back at the Vexari Command Center, Warlord Zethar was reeling from the news of the growing resistance. His scouts had reported the alliance forming among the humans and Zorathians, and his frustration boiled over. They think they can unite against us." Zethar sneered, slamming his fist on the table. "We will show them that defiance only leads to destruction. Gather our best troops. We will strike down this alliance before it grows any stronger." His commanders shifted uneasily, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. The Vexeri had underestimated the spirit of the people they sought to subjugate, and now they were facing a united front fueled by hope and determination. Back in Eldrin, as Fiddler and his team finalized their plans, they felt the weight of their mission. The dawn of a new chapter loomed on the horizon, and with it, the promise of freedom and a brighter future. "Together, we will rise," Fiddler declared, his voice echoing in the room. The warriors raised their weapons high, united in purpose and spirit, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. The fight was far from over, but they had ignited a flame of resistance that would not be easily extinguished. Together, they would stand strong against the Vexari and fight for a brighter tomorrow. The final stand. The air was thick with tension as the Allied forces prepared for their assault on the Vexari stronghold. Thaler, Reynolds, Callan, and the leaders of Eldrin stood at the forefront of their assembled troops, each fighter representing hope, courage, and a burning desire for freedom. They had trained hard, gathered resources, and forged a unity that was both inspiring and formidable. As dawn broke, casting a golden hue over the horizon, Thaler addressed the assembled warriors. "Today is the day we show the Vexari what we are made of. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every soul they have oppressed. This battle will determine our future." The warriors cheered, their voices echoing across the battlefield. They were ready to face whatever the Vexari would throw at them. With hearts full of determination, they marched toward the enemy stronghold, a fortress looming ominously on the horizon. The closer they got, the more the atmosphere shifted. The Vexari had fortified their defenses, and as they approached, Fiddler spotted patrols moving along the walls. The sense of dread hung in the air, but the unity among the Allied forces was palpable. Fiddler signaled for a halt. "We need a plan. The Vexari will expect us to come at them head-on, so we must use our numbers to our advantage. We'll split into two groups. One will create a distraction, and the other will breach the main gate." Reynolds nodded, her voice steady. "I'll lead the distraction team. We'll draw their attention to the east, allowing the main force to strike from the west." Kalen chimed in. "That's a good plan, but we must be quick. Once the alarm is raised, the Vexari will be on high alert. We need to act fast and decisively." With the plan set, the forces divided into their respective teams. Feller felt a surge of pride as he watched the fighters rally around Reynolds, and he knew that their success depended on their ability to work together and trust each other. As they reached their positions, the sound of battle drums echoed from the stronghold, signaling they had noticed their approach. The air crackled with energy, anticipation building as they prepared to make their move. "Now!" shouted, and the distraction team surged forward, unleashing a barrage of arrows and explosives at the eastern wall. The Vexari soldiers scrambled to respond, confusion spreading through their ranks. This was the moment had been waiting for. He rallied his main force and charged forward, leading them toward the western gate. As they neared the entrance, they could see the enemy scrambling to organize a defense. The element of surprise was on their side. Thaler and his warriors broke through the gate with a powerful clash, the sound of metal ringing out as they clashed with the defenders. The fight was fierce, but the Allied forces pushed forward with relentless determination. "Fight for your freedom," Thaler shouted as he engaged in combat, his sword cutting through the chaos. The warriors fought bravely, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that they were fighting for a cause greater than themselves. As Reynolds' distraction team kept the Vexari occupied on the eastern front, Cadlin led a small group toward the heart of the stronghold. Their goal was clear: eliminate the Vexari leadership and cripple their command structure. "We need to find Warlord Zethar," Cadlin yelled over the clashing sounds of battle. "If we can take him down, we'll demoralize the remaining forces." They pushed deeper into the stronghold, navigating through narrow corridors filled with the sounds of combat. Every step brought them closer to their target. Kaelin could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, driving her forward with fierce determination. Back on the battlefield, Thaler fought alongside his warriors, pushing the Vexuri back. The tide was turning, and he could see the resolve in his fighters' eyes. They had come too far to turn back now. Just as he was about to deliver a powerful strike, a Vexuri soldier lunged at him, attempting to catch him off guard. Thaler sidestepped, delivering a swift kick that sent the soldier sprawling. He felt a rush of energy as he realized that their unified front was breaking the enemy's will. Meanwhile, Kaelin's team burst into the command chamber, where Warlord Zethar stood with his commanders, disbelief written on his face. "How did you get in here?" he demanded, his voice dripping with venom. Kaelin didn't hesitate. "Your reign of terror ends here." She charged forward, her weapon raised high, and the others followed suit. A fierce battle erupted within the chamber, the clash of steel ringing out as they fought against Zethar's guards. The odds were against them, but Kaelin's spirit was unyielding. She felt the weight of her allies' hopes on her shoulders, and she refused to let them down. Outside, the battle raged on, but the allied forces were gaining ground. Thaler could see the Vexuri's defenses faltering, and he pushed forward with renewed vigor. "For freedom," he cried, rallying his warriors to continue the assault. With a final, desperate move, Kaelin faced Warlord Zethar, their blades clashing violently. Zethar was powerful and experienced, but Kaelin fought with the strength of every person who had suffered under his rule. "Your time is over, Zethar," she shouted, channeling all her fury into a final strike. With one swift movement, she disarmed him and delivered a blow that sent him crashing to the ground. The room fell silent as Zethar lay defeated, and the tide of the battle shifted decisively. Outside the command chamber, the remaining Vexuri soldiers hesitated, their leader defeated. Thaler seized the moment, pushing his advantage. "Now is our time. Push forward." The Allied forces surge, overpowering the Vexuri defenders and claiming victory. As the last of the Vexuri fell, a roar of triumph erupted from the warriors. They had done it. They had taken back their stronghold. Thaler and Kaelin reunited, their faces beaming with pride. "We did it," Thaler exclaimed, and Kaelin nodded, breathless from the battle. "We fought for each other," Kaelin replied, her heart swelling with emotion. "We fought for our future." As the sun set behind the mountains, casting a warm glow over the battlefield, the Allied forces celebrated their hard-won victory. They had proven that even in the darkest of times, hope could rise from the ashes, and together, they could achieve the impossible. With Warlord Zethar captured and their enemy in disarray, the future was bright for the coalition of warriors. They would rebuild, reclaiming their homes, and ensuring that no one would ever face the darkness of tyranny again. As night fell, Thaler looked out at the stars, knowing that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. United, they would stand strong, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, forever marked by their victory and the strength they had found in each other. The beginning of a great betrayal. The Galactic Council, a powerful and ancient body that controlled the vast stretches of the universe, had gathered once again in their towering chambers. It was a moment of great importance. Representatives from dozens of galaxies sat in their high seats, their eyes fixed on the latest reports from Earth. The planet, once considered nothing more than a speck in the cosmos, was now under their scrutiny, but not for the reasons one might expect. In the cold depths of space, the Galactic Council had decided that humanity's time had come. They had been watching Earth for centuries, observing its growth, its wars, and its survival. But what they saw now was something they didn't fear. It was a species that had barely reached the stars, a species that still fought among themselves, struggling to unite under a single banner. A species that, despite its potential, was not a threat to the established order of the galaxy. "Earth is no more than a fleeting memory," said Cormac, a representative from the Fenner sector, his voice dripping with disdain. "Their technology is outdated. They are weak and divided. We have nothing to fear from them." The council members around the massive table nodded in agreement. For years, they had made decisions based on their belief that Earth, in all its human ingenuity, was a fragile world. They believed that humanity's future would be limited to their planet, perhaps a few colonies scattered in nearby star systems. But they had never seen the true power of Earth. At this moment, the Council was making a dangerous mistake. They were about to underestimate the very species they should have feared the most. But no one in the room saw that yet. "We must make an example of them," continued Cormac, his eyes narrowing. "We need to remind the galaxy that no species is beyond our control. A swift invasion will show that humanity is nothing more than a primitive civilization, ripe for the taking." Another council member, a silent observer until now, spoke up. Her name was Rylan, and she came from the distant star system of Velius. Unlike the others, she had studied Earth more closely. She had seen the strange resilience in their people, their ability to survive, adapt, and innovate against all odds. "I disagree," Rylan said, her voice calm but firm. "You underestimate Earth. Their history, while messy and full of conflict, shows a pattern of survival. We cannot simply dismiss them." The room fell silent. Her words were rare in this council, but they were not enough to shift the majority's opinion. Cormac scoffed. "You are overestimating them, Rylan," he said with a chuckle. "Their wars are nothing compared to what we've seen in the galaxy. Their fleet is laughable." He was right. In a way, humanity's fleet, made up of ships built mostly for defense, was small, outdated, and barely able to hold off the local space threats they faced. The Galactic Council's military strength was far superior, with fleets capable of crushing any planet with ease. But Rylan had seen something the others had missed. She had uncovered an old transmission, one that had been buried deep within Earth's history, something the Council had never bothered to investigate. It spoke of a long-lost fleet, one that had been hidden for centuries, its existence erased from the collective memory of humankind. It was not just a fleet of ships, but a testament to human determination and ingenuity. But Rylan could not share this with the Council. They would never believe her. Earth's true power was not in the fleet it showed the galaxy, but in the secrets it kept hidden. With a heavy heart, Rylan watched as the Council members dismissed Earth as insignificant. She knew that humanity, when pushed, would reveal its true strength, and she feared that by the time the Galactic Council realized their mistake, it would be too late. A plan was set in motion. The Galactic Council would send a fleet to Earth. It would be swift, it would be overwhelming, and it would show the galaxy that no species could stand against the might of the Galactic Empire. As the members of the Council made their final decisions, Rylan's thoughts were elsewhere. She stared at Earth on the holographic screen in front of her, the blue and green planet shimmering with potential. She had seen the spark of something within humanity, something the Council could never understand. The humans had faced extinction time and time again, and yet they had always found a way to survive. What the Council didn't know, and what Rylan feared they would soon learn, was that Earth was far from helpless. Back on Earth, no one knew of the danger that loomed in the darkness of space. The leaders of the planet were consumed by their own internal conflicts, their own struggles for power. Humanity had not yet united on a global scale, and it seemed like it would be a long time before they would. But in the shadows, there were those who knew. There were whispers among a select few old legends passed down in secret of a fleet long forgotten, waiting to be awoken. The Galactic Council believed they were in control. They thought Earth was ripe for conquest, a weak planet with nothing to offer. But in their arrogance, they had made a fatal mistake. They had forgotten one simple truth. Humanity was not a species that could be easily defeated. And now, they would soon find out just how wrong they were. The beginning of a great betrayal had been set in motion, and there was no turning back. Whispers of the past, As the Galactic Council's plan to invade Earth gained momentum, the echoes of a forgotten history stirred beneath the surface of the blue planet. On Earth, no one had any idea of the grand scheme unfolding against them. Life continued as usual, with humanity preoccupied by its own struggles, its own distractions. But in the deepest, most secret corners of the world, there were whispers, ancient whispers, that spoke of a fleet built not for defense, but for vengeance. A fleet buried so deep in history that no one alive today knew of its existence. In an old dusty archive beneath the ruins of an ancient city, a small group of scientists, historians, and military experts worked tirelessly. These individuals had been searching for years, their obsession with Earth's lost history driving them to uncover secrets long hidden. They had spent their lives piecing together fragments of a past that had been intentionally erased. The archives, filled with dusty old texts and forgotten relics, contained something extraordinary: records of the Earth's forgotten fleet. One particular document caught their attention: a sealed file marked with an emblem that no one had seen in centuries. It was an emblem of a fleet that had never been mentioned in the official history books. According to the ancient texts, this fleet was designed during a time when Earth faced a threat so great that humanity was forced to prepare for war against a galactic empire far beyond anything they could comprehend. The fleet, known as the Last Dawn, was built in secret, hidden in underground shipyards and forgotten cities. The file revealed something extraordinary. These ships were not ordinary vessels. They were built with technology far beyond anything humanity had ever developed. The fleet was designed to be humanity's final defense, a last resort against any threat from the stars. But the fleet had never been used. Instead, it was hidden, its existence erased from the history of Earth by a global conspiracy that wished to keep such power secret. Now, as Earth faced an unknown threat from the Galactic Council, this fleet was all that stood between humanity's survival and its destruction. But no one knew where the fleet was, nor did they know how to awaken it. The scientists and historians who uncovered this ancient secret were determined to find the fleet before it was too late. But time was running out. In the corridors of power, a shadowy figure named General Vance, who had stumbled upon this long-lost secret years earlier, was quietly rallying a group of loyal soldiers, engineers, and old military leaders to take action. He had always believed that humanity's true potential was hidden, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed. General Vance had been part of a covert project that monitored strange anomalies in space, and he had gathered evidence that something was stirring. The Galactic Council was coming, and Earth would need its hidden fleet if it was to survive. General Vance, along with his group, began searching the Earth for the locations where the fleet had been hidden. The clues were scarce, scattered across forgotten vaults and ruins, but they were determined. As the group ventured to the oldest sites on Earth, from ancient temples to long-abandoned military bases, they started to uncover the truth piece by piece. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council's chambers, the plans to destroy Earth were already in motion. A fleet of warships, massive in scale and superior in technology, was being prepared for the invasion. The Council members felt secure in their decision. They believed Earth posed no real challenge to their overwhelming power, but they did not know that beneath the surface, humanity had been preparing for this moment for centuries, in secret, and they did not know that General Vance and his team were only days away from uncovering the fleet. The Council's forces, led by Admiral Varric of the Firen Dominion, were brimming with confidence. His fleet, thousands of ships strong, had been assembled with one purpose: to wipe out Earth's feeble defenses and send a clear message to any species that dared to defy the Galactic Council. Admiral Varric believed that the humans would never see the full scale of his power. He was wrong. Back on Earth, the clock was ticking. General Vance's team had located the entrance to the hidden fleet's resting place, an ancient underground shipyard buried deep beneath the Earth's surface. It was located in a remote region, far from the watchful eyes of the rest of the world. As they descended into the depths, the team was filled with both awe and fear. The vast hangars were filled with ships so enormous that even the engineers were stunned by their size. These were no ordinary vessels. They were warships designed for a time when Earth would need to fight for its very existence. One by one, the ships were brought back to life. The ancient engines hummed to life, and the crew began preparing the ships for war. But even as they worked, they knew the odds were stacked against them. The fleet, although powerful, was still a relic of a long-forgotten era. The technology may have been advanced, but it had not been maintained for centuries. Still, they had no choice. Humanity had been betrayed, and they had no other option but to rise. In the Galactic Council's chambers, Admiral Varric received the final orders. His fleet was ready, and soon, Earth would be under his control. The invasion would begin. But as he looked at the holographic images of Earth on his command deck, something caught his attention, an unusual signal originating from Earth. He brushed it off as an error, a small glitch in the communication systems. But deep inside, he felt a strange unease. He dismissed it, but that unease would soon grow into something far greater. For now, both sides were preparing. The Galactic Council, confident in their superiority, had no idea what awaited them. The humans, hidden away in the shadows, were waking up a fleet that would change the course of their history. The story was unfolding, and soon the galaxy would learn just how wrong the Council had been to underestimate humanity. The stage was set. The hidden fleet of Earth was ready to rise, and soon the Galactic Council would regret their decision to betray humanity. The fleet awakens. The ground shook as the ancient engines roared to life. For the first time in centuries, the once dormant fleet was stirring, its hidden ships awakening from their long slumber beneath Earth's surface. The hum of powerful machinery filled the vast underground hangar, echoing like the heartbeat of a long-forgotten giant. General Vance stood at the control console, his hand gripping the cold metal, his eyes scanning the readings. His face, hardened by years of preparation, betrayed a rare flicker of hope. They had found it. They had found the last dawn, the fleet that would change the fate of humanity. The ships were enormous, far larger than anything humanity had ever built. Towering structures with sleek, intimidating designs, each one seemed to radiate power. As the crew worked to restore power to the ships, the room was filled with a sense of awe. These were not the clunky, outdated ships Earth had used in its battles. These were vessels built for an entirely different purpose, built for war on a galactic scale. General Vance looked around at the team of engineers, scientists, and soldiers who had gathered to make the impossible possible. Some were nervous, others were exhilarated, but all were focused on one thing: bringing these ships to full capacity. They didn't have the luxury of time. The Galactic Council's fleet was already on its way, and the countdown to the invasion was rapidly approaching. Outside the massive hangar, Earth's skies remained peaceful, unaware of the storm that was about to break. From the bustling cities to the quiet rural areas, humanity carried on with their everyday lives. No one knew what awaited them. The government had kept the news under wraps, but whispers were beginning to spread. Rumors of an ancient fleet, of something massive rising from the depths of the Earth. But most dismissed these as wild stories or conspiracy theories. In the dark, hidden rooms of military command centers, General Vance's plan was unfolding, but it wasn't without challenges. The fleet had been dormant for so long that much of its technology had degraded. Some ships had missing parts, others required repairs beyond anything the team had expected. The engineers worked tirelessly, under immense pressure, to get everything operational. Yet, despite these challenges, something undeniable was emerging from the depths of Earth's forgotten history. Humanity was preparing to fight back. As the first of the ships was finally brought into full operational status, General Vance called a meeting with his most trusted commanders. They gathered in a small, dimly lit room, the air heavy with tension. The plans were simple. The fleet would rise, and they would meet the Galactic Council's invasion head-on. But the question was how. Earth had no knowledge of large-scale space warfare. The ships, though powerful, were old and had not seen battle in over 1,000 years. General Vance addressed the group, his voice steady but carrying the weight of their mission. "We're not just fighting for survival," he said, his eyes scanning the faces around the table. "We're fighting to show the galaxy that humanity is not a species to be underestimated. We've been silent for far too long, hidden in the shadows of our own history. Now it's time to awaken." The commanders nodded, each of them understanding the gravity of the situation. They were not only defending their home, they were proving humanity's worth in a universe that had forgotten their strength. Meanwhile, light years away, the Galactic Council's fleet was approaching. The admiral at the helm, Admiral Varric, had no idea what he was about to face. He and his fleet were confident. Earth was nothing but a primitive world, its defenses laughable at best. Their task was clear: arrive, subdue the planet, and send a message to the galaxy that the Council would not tolerate defiance. But Varric's arrogance would be his undoing. As his fleet sailed through the vast emptiness of space, he received the strange signal once again. This time, it wasn't a glitch. The signal had grown stronger, more defined. His eyes narrowed as he studied the readout. Something was wrong. The message was coming from Earth, an old frequency, one that shouldn't have existed. "Admiral," his communications officer spoke up, "we're picking up an unidentified signal from Earth. It's an encrypted transmission. We're trying to decode it." Varric waved it off. "Ignore it. We have a mission to complete. Earth is nothing. We've seen their fleet. Their technology is outdated. A few old ships won't make any difference." But deep inside, a small, nagging doubt began to form in his mind. It was nothing more than a fleeting thought, but it was enough to unsettle him. Back on Earth, General Vance and his team had made significant progress. The fleet was coming together. The ships were ready. And now, the moment of truth had arrived. The first ship, the lead vessel of the fleet, hovered above the hangar floor, its massive frame towering over the crew below. General Vance stood on the command deck, his gaze fixed on the stars outside. The ship was ready. It was time to leave the planet, to take the fight to the Galactic Council. With a signal from the general, the fleet lifted off, emerging from the underground hangar into the sky above. For the first time in centuries, humanity's forgotten fleet was back in action. The sky was filled with the roar of engines, the sleek warships slicing through the atmosphere. The last remnants of Earth's hidden power had risen. The Council's fleet was on its way to Earth, but they had no idea what was waiting for them. What they thought would be an easy victory was now a race against time. The tables had turned, and the fate of the galaxy was about to shift. Humanity had awakened, and the Council would soon regret underestimating them. As the fleet ascended into the vastness of space, General Vance looked out at the stars. There was no turning back now. The fight had begun, and humanity's future would be decided in the darkness between the stars. The fleet, a symbol of humanity's strength, was ready to face the greatest challenge of its history. And in the heart of space, the Galactic Council would soon realize just how wrong they had been to underestimate Earth. The battle begins. The cold void of space stretched endlessly before them, an empty canvas waiting to be painted with the events of history. General Vance stood at the helm of the lead ship, his hands steady as the controls responded to his every command. The fleet of humanity's forgotten ships had broken free of Earth's atmosphere, and now they were headed straight into the heart of the galactic conflict. It was a race against time, but the battle for Earth's survival was now officially underway. As the ships accelerated toward the unknown, their sleek, powerful forms cutting through space, Vance's mind was focused. Every decision mattered. The ships were old, their technology ancient compared to the more advanced weapons of the Galactic Council, but they held something more: humanity's will to fight, to survive, and to prove that they were not a race to be forgotten. In the depths of space, the Galactic Council's fleet advanced with confidence. Admiral Varric stood at the front of his command ship, the impressive flagship of the fleet. He looked over the holographic display in front of him, seeing the faint outlines of the Earth's atmosphere and the distant, unfamiliar ships emerging from it. At first, he thought nothing of it. He had expected Earth to put up some resistance, perhaps a few desperate, primitive ships, but nothing like this. "Sir, the Earth ships are moving toward us," reported one of his officers, his voice tinged with uncertainty. They don't look like anything we've seen before." Admiral Varric narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean by that? Our scanners show nothing out of the ordinary." The officer hesitated before speaking again. "They're older, very old, but they're equipped with advanced weaponry. It's as if they've been hiding this fleet for centuries." Varric's lips twisted into a smirk. "So they've finally shown their hand. How quaint. Let them come. We'll destroy them like we've done to so many primitive worlds before." He didn't know it yet, but this mistake would be his last. Back on Earth, General Vance watched as the fleet sped through space, its massive ships stretching across the sky in a precise formation. The crew was on high alert, preparing for what was about to come. On the command deck, Vance's eyes were locked on the view ahead. The Council's fleet was approaching quickly. "All ships, prepare for combat," Vance ordered. His voice was calm, but there was no mistaking the gravity of the situation. Every crew member on board knew the risks. This was humanity's first true battle for survival. The silence in space was eerie, but soon it would be shattered. The first wave of Council ships appeared on the horizon, their sleek forms looming in the distance, like an army of giants coming to crush a small, helpless ant. As the two fleets drew closer, the tension became unbearable. Every crew member could feel it in the air, the weight of what was about to unfold. These ships, these warriors, these forgotten warriors of humanity. This was their moment. "Enemy fleet at maximum range," reported one of the officers, a sense of urgency in his voice. "We're within firing distance." Vance nodded, his expression unwavering. "Open fire." The battle began with a deafening roar. The Earth fleet's ancient weapons fired first, the weapons systems that had lain dormant for centuries coming back to life with brutal force. The first shots tore into the Council ships, sending plumes of fire and debris into the void. It was a shock, a surprise to the Council fleet who had expected an easy victory. Their ships, more advanced in design, but unprepared for the sudden onslaught, were hit hard. The lead Council ship took the brunt of the initial attack. Massive energy blasts crackled across its hull, tearing through the shields and sending ripples of destruction through its structure. For a moment, it seemed as if Earth's fleet had struck the Council's forces with more power than they could handle. Admiral Varric, now fully aware that his enemy was far more formidable than he had thought, slammed his fist onto the console in front of him. "Return fire. Now." A surge of energy shot out from the Council ships, retaliating with laser beams and plasma bolts. The battle was on, the vastness of space becoming a violent theater for their struggle. Ships from both sides twisted and turned, dodging blasts and retaliating in kind. The sky was filled with explosions, blinding lights, and the sounds of warfare. General Vance watched as the battle unfolded on the view screens. The Earth fleet was holding its own, but it was clear that they were outmatched in terms of sheer firepower. The Council's ships were faster, more agile, and their weaponry was superior. Yet there was something the Council couldn't account for, something that was humanity's greatest strength: their creativity, their adaptability, and their willingness to sacrifice everything for the survival of their home. Recalculating trajectory, an officer called out. "We've got them on the defensive. The Council ships are reeling from the initial blast." Vance's lips curled into a grim smile. "Good. Keep pressing them. They won't know what hit them." The fleet's commanders, each in their own ships, gave their orders, coordinating movements and attacks. The warships of Earth, though old, were far more capable than they had been given credit for. They were moving with precision, executing battle strategies with ruthless efficiency. The Council, despite their superiority in technology, had underestimated the sheer determination and resourcefulness of humanity. As Earth's fleet maneuvered into position for the next round of strikes, Admiral Varric watched helplessly. He could see his ships falling back, retreating under the force of the attack. His confidence began to crack. How was this possible? How had a primitive race like humanity managed to pull off such an organized, coordinated fight? It was no longer just a battle of weapons. It was a battle of wills. All ships, fall back to formation. Varric shouted, "We cannot lose Earth. This is not how this ends." But his voice was drowned out by the deafening sounds of battle. Humanity had entered the fight, and they were not going to let the Galactic Council destroy them so easily. The first waves of battle had just begun, and already the Council was learning a harsh lesson. Earth was not a planet to be taken lightly. The real fight had only just begun. Humanity's resilience revealed. The battle in space raged on, the backdrop of deep, endless black interrupted by flashes of explosions and the sharp streaks of energy beams. On the command deck of the lead Earth ship, General Vance stood stoically, his eyes locked onto the view ahead. Every second was a tense reminder of what was at stake. This wasn't just a fight for Earth's survival. It was a fight for humanity's place in the galaxy. They had been underestimated, forgotten, dismissed. But now, they had a chance to prove that humanity was anything but weak. The Earth fleet, though vastly outgunned by the Galactic Council's superior weaponry, was more resilient than anyone had expected. Their ships, though aged and weathered by time, moved with purpose, their crews operating with a synergy that could only be born from desperation and a deep-rooted desire to protect their home. Each blast from the enemy was met with a counterstrike. Each shift in the tide of battle was met with unwavering determination. As the Council's ships continued their barrage, Admiral Varric's frustration grew. His fleet had suffered more than he anticipated, with several ships already taking heavy damage. The Earth ships weren't just fighting. They were forcing his forces to retreat, maneuvering with tactics that made it clear that this wasn't the same primitive species he had been briefed on. "Commander, report." Varric barked, his eyes flashing with anger. The battle was spiraling out of control, and his pride was on the line. The Council could not afford to lose to such an insignificant world. "We've lost communication with several of the forward fleet," the officer replied, his voice trembling. "The Earth fleet is too unpredictable. They're using guerrilla tactics, hitting us from angles we didn't prepare for. Their ships are older, but their crews, they fight like they have nothing to lose." Varric clenched his fists. This wasn't supposed to happen. Earth was supposed to be an easy conquest, a quick annexation. But now he was facing the full wrath of a species fighting for their very existence. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Earth's flagship, Vance's calm demeanor never wavered. "Target their weak points," he instructed, his voice steady and firm. "We're hitting them where it hurts. They might be more advanced, but they haven't seen what we can do when we're cornered." The crew responded quickly, working in perfect harmony. The tactics of Earth's fleet weren't traditional, but that's what gave them the upper hand. Their ships, even in their dilapidated state, were more adaptable than the Council's highly structured fleet. The Council's commanders had been trained to fight in a predictable, orderly fashion, but humanity's battle experience had come from necessity, not formality. Every action was instinctual, every movement a desperate but calculated risk. As the battle wore on, a sudden explosion rocked one of the Council's heavy cruisers. The ship trembled as fire licked its hull, and it was clear that its shields were no match for the relentless attacks from Earth's ships. "Direct hit to their weapon systems, sir," reported an officer on the Earth fleet's command deck. "They're breaking formation." "It's working." Vance nodded. "Keep up the pressure. They'll try to regroup, but they'll be too weak to retaliate effectively. We just need to hold on a little longer." In the heat of battle, the Earth fleet found themselves pushing harder than they ever had before. There were casualties, of course, ships lost, lives sacrificed. But the spirit of humanity was shining through. Each victory, no matter how small, was a statement. They weren't just going to give up. They weren't going to go quietly into the dark void of space. The Council's fleets, despite their superior technology, were starting to show cracks in their armor. The leadership of the Galactic Council was beginning to doubt their initial assessment of humanity's resolve. What they had thought was an easy conquest was turning into a nightmare. Earth's fleet was unpredictable, relentless, and unlike anything they had ever faced before. As the battle continued to unfold, General Vance's mind raced. There was no time to celebrate. Every tactical move, every shot fired, could be their last. Yet there was a strange sense of pride swelling within him. Humanity wasn't going to let their home be taken. They would do whatever it took to defend their planet. All ships, brace for another attack, Vance ordered, his eyes focused on the battle's progression. The Earth fleet's next move would be crucial, and he knew the Council was starting to realize just how dangerous humanity could be. Back on the Council's flagship, Admiral Varric was pacing, his hands gripped tightly behind his back. The defeat was looming closer with each passing moment. His officers were rattled, and his fleet was on the brink of collapse. He had to do something, anything, to stop the momentum of the Earth fleet before it was too late. "Send in the reinforcements," he growled. "We need to crush them now, before they break through completely." But deep down, Varric knew the truth. The Earth fleet had already won the first battle. Their resilience, their sheer determination to survive, had caught the Council off guard. No amount of reinforcements could undo the damage that had already been done. As Earth's ships continued their relentless assault, Admiral Varric and the Galactic Council were left with a bitter realization. Humanity was no longer a forgotten species. They had awakened, and they were not going to let the galaxy forget them again. The final stand. The battle was nearing its peak. The skies over Earth had become a chaotic tapestry of explosions, streaks of light, and the sharp, jagged edges of damaged ships. In the heart of the conflict, General Vance stood tall on the bridge of the flagship, his expression grim but resolute. His hands gripped the rail in front of him, every muscle tensed as he scanned the battlefield. They had come a long way, but they weren't out of danger yet. The Council had thrown everything they had at Earth, but humanity was still standing strong. "Admiral, we're being outnumbered," a voice crackled through the comms. "More ships are arriving. Their reinforcements are here." Vance's jaw tightened, but there was no hint of panic in his eyes. "We've been in worse situations. Keep pressing forward, and keep them off Earth's orbit at all costs. This is our home. We don't give up." Behind him, the crew of the flagship worked tirelessly, their eyes glued to the battle unfolding outside. The Earth fleet, though battered, was holding its ground. Their ships, many of them old and underpowered compared to the advanced Council warships, had become symbols of resistance. The strength of humanity's spirit, their unyielding will to survive, had become the true weapon of this fight. Despite being outnumbered, Earth's fleet refused to relent. The tactics that had made them unpredictable were now starting to pay off. Ships that were once thought of as obsolete were now cutting through enemy lines with precision. The more advanced Council ships, designed for efficiency and firepower, were unable to handle the chaos of human ingenuity. On the bridge of the Council flagship, Admiral Varric's face was contorted with frustration. His eyes flicked to the battlefield, watching as his reinforcements entered the fray. Yet, instead of the crushing victory he had expected, his forces seemed to falter. The Earth fleet, despite the odds, was still fighting with relentless determination. He had been wrong, dead wrong, to underestimate humanity. "Report." Varric barked, his voice rising in anger. "We've lost contact with several of our fleet's forward stations," came the reply, "and the Earth fleet keeps evading us. Their ships, while slower, are more agile than we anticipated. Their crews, they're not afraid." Varric turned, his fists clenched, and his eyes burned with the realization. This battle wasn't just about firepower. It was about something far more dangerous. Humanity was fighting for its existence, and it was a force unlike any he had ever encountered. The Council had underestimated the resolve of a species backed into a corner. Meanwhile, on the Earth Fleet's flagship, General Vance received a new transmission from Earth's command center. It was brief, but it was all the confirmation he needed. The reinforcements had arrived. Humanity had called upon every possible resource to defend their home, and now Earth was mobilizing everything it had left. All ships, listen up. Vance's voice boomed through the comms. We've got one final push. This is our chance to end it once and for all. No retreat, no surrender. There was a moment of silent agreement among the crews. Humanity had fought hard, and now it was time to finish what they started. As the Earth fleet surged forward, Admiral Varick's face turned pale. The wave of human ships that surged through space now was unlike anything he had seen before. The sheer volume of ships, old, new, patched up, and modified beyond recognition, was overwhelming. Earth had truly unleashed its full potential, and the Galactic Council had no idea what they were up against. It didn't take long for the first Council ships to begin to break formation. The Earth fleet's concentrated assault, fueled by the desperation of survival, began to tear through their lines. Even with their superior weaponry, the Council's ships couldn't handle the relentless barrage of human ingenuity and tactics. "This is it," Vance muttered under his breath as he watched the chaos unfold. "This is humanity's moment." In the midst of the battle, the flagship of the Earth fleet moved forward, cutting a path through the chaos. The Council's ships tried to regroup, but it was too late. The human fleet was like a swarm, unpredictable and relentless, their every move calculated to dismantle the Council's once feared forces. On the Council's flagship, Admiral Varick stood frozen, his mind racing as he watched his fleet crumble. The once proud ships of the Galactic Council were now being overrun by the relentless attacks of Earth's fleet. What had started as a mission of conquest was quickly turning into a humiliating defeat. His own ships were in retreat, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "Admiral, we can't hold out much longer," one of his officers said, fear evident in their voice. "The Earth fleet is pushing us back. Their ships. How are they doing this?" Varick's mind was clouded with disbelief. It wasn't supposed to end like this. They had underestimated the will of humanity. They had thought that by simply showing up, they could crush Earth's forces. But now, humanity's resilience was on full display. "Retreat," Varick ordered, his voice cracking. "We've lost. We need to get out of here before it's too late." But even as the command was given, it was clear to all involved that the Galactic Council had already been defeated. Earth had stood its ground, and the Council had paid the price for underestimating humanity. Back on Earth's flagship, General Vance could feel the tide of battle shifting. The Council was in retreat. The victory was theirs. "Earth stands strong," Vance said, his voice steady but filled with pride. "We've proven to the galaxy that we will never be underestimated again." As the last remnants of the Galactic Council's fleet disappeared into the depths of space, humanity stood victorious. The Earth fleet, battered but unbroken, had triumphed against overwhelming odds. The galaxy would never forget the day when humanity proved that they could take on the impossible and win. For Earth, the fight was over. But for the galaxy, the story was just beginning. A new dawn for humanity. The battle had ended, but the echoes of victory reverberated across the galaxy. Earth, once seen as a primitive and insignificant speck in the vast cosmos, now stood as a beacon of defiance and strength. The Galactic Council, once the unstoppable force that had dominated the stars, was now reeling from a crushing defeat, one that would forever change the course of history. General Vance stood on the observation deck of Earth's flagship, his gaze fixed on the stars. The fleet had returned home, and the surviving ships were already beginning their journey back to their respective planets. But for Vance, there was no time to rest. The war might have been won, but the true battle was just beginning. "Sir," a voice broke through his thoughts. It was his second-in-command, Lieutenant Reyes. "The Council has formally surrendered. They've agreed to peace talks." Vance turned slowly, a slight smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I knew they would," he said quietly. "But we're not doing this for peace. We're doing this to ensure Earth's future, and the future of every species in this galaxy. We've earned that right." Reyes nodded, his face filled with respect for the General's unwavering determination. "There's also something else. The other galactic factions, they're watching us. They've seen what we can do. They're starting to look at us in a new light." Vance's eyes narrowed as he processed this new development. The defeat of the Galactic Council was just the beginning. As the dust settled from the battle, other civilizations, alien species that had once underestimated humanity, were beginning to take notice. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and Earth was no longer just a small player in the grand scheme of things. Humanity had proven that it was capable of much more than anyone had imagined. "We need to be ready," Vance said, his voice hardening. "We've shown that we can fight, but now we need to show that we can lead. The galaxy is vast, and not all of it is as forgiving as the Council. If we want to build a future for ourselves and our allies, we need to be smarter. We need to prepare for what's coming." Back on Earth, celebrations erupted. People filled the streets, cheering and waving flags. The victory was a symbol of hope, not just for Earth, but for all who had witnessed it. Humanity had faced seemingly insurmountable odds, and yet they had emerged victorious. The story of how the Galactic Council had underestimated Earth's resolve was already becoming a legend, told in every corner of the globe. But General Vance knew that the true challenge lay ahead. The Council's defeat was a message to the universe. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were no longer content to stay in the shadows. They had shown their strength, and now they would fight for their place in the galaxy. Across the stars, the first of many diplomatic missions began. Earth's leaders met with representatives from other alien species, extending a hand of peace, but with a quiet understanding that Earth's strength would be respected. The galaxy was about to change in ways no one could have predicted. Humanity had earned its seat at the table of the stars. As the days passed, Vance's thoughts returned to the stars. He knew the galaxy was a vast and unpredictable place. But for the first time, humanity's future was theirs to shape. They had fought for their survival, and now they had to fight for their place in the cosmos. But one thing was certain: Earth would no longer be underestimated. They had shown the galaxy that humanity could stand tall among the stars, and that they would not back down in the face of overwhelming odds. The Council had learned this lesson the hard way, and the galaxy would never forget the day Earth's fleet arrived, and the price the Council had paid for underestimating them. The future was wide open, and humanity was ready for whatever came next. And with that, the journey of Earth as a new power in the galaxy had only just begun.